What if you could help others to find the power to heal themselves? Physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
When I started teaching my classes, it was in 2002, and I was just doing the past life regressions and contacting the subconscious part. But then as the time went on and we found how powerful this was and what we could do with it, a lot of the students began saying, you know, advanced past life regression doesn't really tell what it's all about. This is so much more than that. We think you should change the name. So it was a few years ago we decided to change the name to Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is the healing technique that we've now been teaching it, well, since 2002, that's 12 years.
What if you could time travel with them? Visit mythical places or angelic realms, other worlds, other galaxies. Help others to speak to their higher selves. You can. Dolores has taught thousands of people from across the world how to use QHHT, and now you can learn her method by going directly to dolorescannon.com. And don't forget to mention the discount code MORETALKS.
Established over 100 years ago, Watkins Books is one of the world's oldest and leading independent bookshops specializing in esoterica. We have the widest selection of esoteric books in the UK, and our friendly and knowledgeable staff are here to assist you in a unique ambience of our shop. So come and visit us in the heart of London as we're open every day.
The More Show is supported by Mindscape, Paranormal and UFO Matrix magazines, available for download on all major digital platforms. The comments and views expressed on The More Show are those of the people that make them and do not necessarily reflect the view of Kevin Moore, The More Show, or this radio station and its affiliate or sponsors. This show is for entertainment purposes only.
Broadcasting from the UK and across the world online. You're now watching the UK's only alternative late-night talk show, and I'm your host, Kevin Moore. For the next hour, I'll be covering subjects that will open up your mind and provide you with information you may have never heard before. On today's show, I'm joined with Helen Connor, who is no stranger to leading-edge research. With an MSc in atomic chemistry and having been involved in nuclear medical research in Boston, Massachusetts, she brings a strongly scientific background to her astrological pursuits. Now, Helen explores modern-day expressions of mythical themes and archetypal patterns and analytical approaches to research. Her latest book, Fish Can't Climb Trees, is a breakthrough from an unexpected direction. Helen Connor, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Kevin. Nice to be here with you.
It's great to have you on. Now, we were just talking off air. This is your first interview, is that right?
Ever,
your first interview ever. OMG. Okay, so no pressure
No.
at all. Okay, well, this would be, thank you for that. I was saying off air to you as well that I did look around actually, and I was like, I couldn't find any previous material or anything. So, all right, well, this will be an interesting one as well. A first for me and a first for you, most definitely. Okay, well, this is based on your book, Fish Can't Climb Trees, and I've sort of classed under a sort of unique book on learning and communication. Why did you write this book?
I think that there's a tremendous emphasis on communication in the world today. Many people have phones permanently affixed to their hands. There's the social media, and et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think people are communicating any better right now than they ever did. And I think that's very sad. The Mercury Model, which I've developed, I see it as a 21st century cognitive model, gives us a tool that we can use to really improve communication if we actually want to. It offers the opportunity to actually know who you're talking to know what that person's learning requirements are, and therefore how you have to format your message if you hope to have it picked up and integrated easily. It does a number of other things as well, and I'm sure we'll get to that, but it's a possible way for everyone to stop just talking to themselves in the presence of others and actually engage with the other person. That's why I wrote it, to make that available generally and broadly.
Okay, let me just, because obviously I'm doing things in the background here as well while you're saying that. Let me just get the gist of this then. Let's just re-emphasize that again, what it's for. It's for...
In a shorter way, maybe. The Mercury Model allows very easy assessment or identification of a person's learning style, what makes their mind tick, and a thorough and accurate description of their learning style. So basically, it's a model that allows any of us to know how another person's mind ticks. It's not mind reading, it's not identifying what a person's thinking about, it's identifying their style and what they do with the equipment they have. Is that better?
Yeah, and why is that important?
I think that many people do just talk to themselves. They, especially these days with Twitter, etc., people think and speak in sound bites rather than actually communicating with each other. Now, additionally, I think that many people believe that a mind is a mind is a mind, and that they're all pretty much the same. They all function in the same way, and that simply isn't true. We're very different. We're all wired differently. Beyond simple brain chemistry and structure, we use the equipment we have in very, very different ways. And if a message is delivered, say to you, Kevin, in a way that it takes account of your learning requirements, then that message will go in easily, and otherwise it won't. You'll have to struggle.
Okay, so this could be quite useful in the sense of marketing as well, for marketing purposes.
When the publisher asked me who my potential audience was, I filled almost 2 A4 sheets with ideas of where it would be useful, and marketing is one of them. I think it's applicable in the living room, the boardroom, the schoolroom, the bar room, absolutely any place that people are engaging with each other.
But surely, obviously, if you're having a conversation with someone for the first time, or even as a friend, perhaps, you're not going to know their learning style in a sense, or I don't know if I'm using the right word there.
No, that's the right word, Kevin. I may not know what their learning style is, but I know what mine is. And I know that I tend, if I'm not, like rest of us, if I'm not considering the other person when I'm speaking, I'm going to speak from within my own learning requirements. And for me personally, I'm going to fill the conversation with detail and minutia. And frankly, it's very boring to a lot of people who maybe need enthusiasm or fun or logic or one of many other, or a number of many other factors in order for them to pick up a message. So the first step is, for all of us, is to use the Mercury Model as a tool for self-awareness, to understand what it is that you bring to every conversation you have, whether you're talking to a child or an adult, your boss or your best friend, what you actually bring to the conversation. That's the first step. Secondly, is to remember that the other person might not learn in the same way that you do, and they'll have their own learning requirements. All you need, well, it's a very easy assessment, and it's an accurate description. So we'll start it there. Is that okay?
Okay, so let's pause it there for a moment as well. Let's just go.
Right.
Let's go back into your story as well. From reading your bio, obviously there's a lot of science in your background, which is fantastic. But then also there's this spiritual side of you as well, and also astrology. How is that right? Are there those sort of three sides?
Well, they aren't three sides, because I'm only one person, and I actually do stand with a foot in the camp of science and the other foot in the camp of spiritual development and spiritual studies. And for me, there's no separation. I can tell you in great detail why there isn't any separation for me, but it always is puzzling to me that it hits other people as being odd. So yes, it's all correct. My early training was in nuclear chemistry. I practiced in that field. I was still practicing in Boston, doing medical research in nuclear medicine, when I began to notice the links of body, mind, and spirit, and I developed an interest in that, and now it's both things, but they're not separate, as I say. In fact, I think that marrying science and spirituality is a very important part of life. One could perhaps look at some of the other polar opposites that always need to be married for creativity to flow. I think that the science and the spirituality could be likened perhaps to the logic and the intuition, or even the masculine and the feminine, which coexists within each one of us. And it actually takes both of those merged for innovation or creativity to be born, for anything new to develop.
It does. Did you ever see some of your colleagues that didn't embrace them both?
Yes, I think that those people who don't embrace them both are people whose work develops what's already known. It's people who do marry them together, who spawn innovation and the new.
Yeah. And I suppose one of your innovations was not only working on yourself, but also, that's led you to write this latest book.
Yeah. That's true, Kevin. The information that's available in Fish Can't Climb Trees is new. And this really is the first time that I know of that you can discover who it is you're talking to and what they need in terms of an approach, and actually speak to them as individuals, knowing what you can do to make learning easier for them or make information exchange easier for them. I don't think we ever had that available to us before. I mean, there are learning style tests, which, first of all, always include behavior, seem to me to always include behavior as part of the formula. And you never really get down to exactly just what the mind is doing. There are some learning style models that are based on observation of behavior. Well, behavior isn't thinking. Behavior's out and in the public eye, whereas the the mental dynamics are going on in private. It's secret. It's a hidden part of our makeup. You can't observe. You can observe the effects of having learned something, that big eureka moment, but that isn't the learning. It's the expression that the learning has already happened.
You know, when I speak to someone and that I've not met before, or when I observe people as well, I tend to think of it a little bit differently in a sense. When we say, well, you know, we are all wired differently, and there, you know, when a baby is born, it's uniquely different as it grows up to any other baby in the sense of the personality. And I always think to myself, well, yeah, it's beyond the mind really. There's consciousness. Consciousness is what we really are. That's my truth, and it's the consciousness that makes us completely different, because that consciousness is at different stages.
Well, I would agree with that completely. Let me first say, the Mercury model doesn't deal with personality items, and my work does. When I'm in under the hat of the proponent of the Mercury model, I'm not talking about personality. But let me pick up the word consciousness, because I think it's a really important one in this discussion. If we think about the mythological character of Mercury, the ancient god of Mercury with a small g, of course, his work within the field of the other mythological characters was the message bearer. And he carried all the messages around. He carried information. He transferred information from one place to the other. And he was the only god who had access to the realm of Pluto, because for the rest of them, once they went there, they didn't get out, usually, and to the throne of Jupiter. So Mercury was able to move between Pluto, which we could take to represent the subconscious within ourselves, and Jupiter, the highest of the high, which we could take to represent within ourselves the superconscious. So Mercury could travel between the subconscious and the superconscious. That makes him a representative of our consciousness, because that's the bit that can move between the highest of the high and the subterranean component of our makeup. So the essential nature of Mercury represents our consciousness. And I didn't mean to get, right into the jugular this way with the Mercury model, because that's not the level of it that may interest people who want to use it in a practical level. But as you brought up, we are our consciousness, I thought I'd put forward that point of view as perhaps being an interesting one, because it ends up saying so much about us. So much about us that using the word learning style or even cognition is tiny by comparison to what the Mercury model actually indicates about each of us.
Well, let's actually have a look at the Mercury module and how this improves communications and improves learning and improves relationships.
Yeah, it does do all that. May I use you as an example?
Well, absolutely, because this will help me to get my head around all this. Absolutely, please.
Yes, okay. For your viewers, I'll say that Kevin shared his date of birth with me prior to screening, and I used the tables in my book, Fish Can't Climb Trees, consulted it in Kevin's behalf, and discovered that the archetype of the Mercury model that he connects with, or that connects with him, is the one that I call Rex, the Dignified. Each of the archetypes that the Mercury model deals with has a name, a character, and several other components that help people with all different kinds of ways of learning to understand what I'm talking about. So Rex the Dignified. When presented with new information, Rex the Dignified takes a giant step back and pauses and says, I'm not altogether sure that I want this information. And this happens within your makeup, Kevin, every time you're presented with new information. Now, the hesitation may not be lengthy. It may be pretty rapid, but it exists, and you make a decision as to whether you're going to take that information in or not. Many of us don't have that luxury of making a decision. You do, and it's very important in your makeup, because once you do take in a new piece of information, it's there for a very, very, very long time. You don't change your mind easily once you have learned something. Now, you can appear to have learned something and you're just sort of using it. Let me give you an analogy. Your mind is like a kingdom to you, and you don't want any inferior thoughts in there, because you know how people used to say, you are what you eat? You are what you think. What you hold into your, well, I don't want to say compartments, because you don't compartmentalize information. What you take in is a guest who you invite into your kingdom. You want your guests to be of the highest possible caliber. You don't want rubbishy thoughts, because your guests, your ideas, your thinking establishes your identity. And that's another reason why you don't change your mind very often. You also don't forget. You just don't forget things that you have learned and taken in. You don't let your guests go wandering away on overseas holidays or off to the grocery. They have to stay there and defend you and be there with you. So you judge an idea based upon what it will do for your individuality. If it's going to benefit you, you're apt to take it in. And if it's not something you're going to want to carry around for the rest of your life, you tend to reject it. For that reason, you can appear to some people who don't understand your mission to be a bit stubborn or a bit inflexible. Have you ever heard that?
Yes, I can resonate with quite a bit there, definitely.
Okay. When you do make the decision that you're going to take in a piece of information, it goes in a flash. You don't need to process it in any further in any other way. It goes in a flash. You take in fully developed whole concepts once you want to have them. And as I say, you don't then forget. When you speak from a place of such authority that you expect everyone's going to understand you because you're speaking from your heart. And that's as possibly misleading as my thinking everyone wants to know all the details that I want to give them of things. You think people will believe you because you're speaking from your heart. You do speak with great authority. You can dominate a meeting with no difficulty. There's such dignity and authority in what you have to say and in the way you present it. Here's another thing. You fit into a family grouping of mental dynamics that I call the sharers. When you actually do learn something and take it in, you want to tell everybody. You don't want to hesitate or be reserved about it. You tend to just tell people, shout it from the rooftops. I think your field of work is perfect for what you, because you share all your interviews online. So it's a very interesting way of using Rex the Dignified.
Well, that's very interesting. So now there's 12 fundamental learning styles. of the Mercury Model, and Rex the
Correct.
Dignifier is I don't know, what's it, number 5 or 6. Where did you get where did this information come from? How have you come up with Rex the
Well,
Dignifier, for example?
um, talk, talk about a marriage of science and spirituality. There are two main places where I have my best ideas, and one is in the shower, and the other is as I wake in the morning. And when I was during the developmental stages of the Mercury model, day after day after day, the archetype of the material that I needed to use about each of the learning styles coalesced into an archetype, and its name appeared. So Rex the Dignified, along with his drawing of being an aloof little king, dressed appropriately, emerged into the dream state, is where he actually came from, as did the others. Some of the names came in discussion with other people when I would ask for help, which I often do. So that's where he came from.
That's very interesting what you've just said there, actually. Very interesting that this information, some of it came through dreams.
Well, the name of the character.
The name of the character, or
and the basic archetype
yep.
that he follows.
And then you're also saying as well, if I'm just personifying a little bit, so do stop us if it's wrong, that in those quiet times of waking up, or even in the shower, when there's less noise in the mind, this just information just flowed through you. What my question is, what space? Where did this information come from? Was it from your higher self?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let me go with that one. It became very clear to me that people thought and learned, that we think and learn differently. I've made that observation repeatedly. Back when I was a chemistry graduate student, one of my jobs was teaching a practical session in radiochemistry to graduate students from other departments. They were all smart. They were all intelligent people. I discovered that they all didn't take in the information that I was presenting, and made the discovery that if I changed the presentation to fit the person, it was much easier to get the message across. And we all know that people behave differently because we can see it, but it's not a bit clear that we think and learn and have mental activity that's very different. But once I recognized that, and as I was by then a student of mythology and the old ways, and knowing that the god Mercury had a great deal to do with the archetype of thinking and learning and delivering messages, I felt that I needed to come to understand how it was that we were each experiencing that overall archetype of the great god Mercury differently. Do you see what I mean? I wanted to, how could we each be connecting with that archetype in a different way? And I really spent quite a lot of time thinking about that. It's probably when I'm in danger of going off at a tangent that could take about 3 hours, and I don't want to do that. So let me say that I believe that an archetype is up at the most subtle level that the human mind can conceive of. It's at the most spiritual level, the least material and most spiritual. And as that archetype comes down closer toward the earth, it picks up fields of expression in in solid, tangible forms that give expression to the archetype.
Yeah.
And I thought, right, the planet by the same name, the planet Mercury, is going to bear a correspondence to the essential archetype of Mercury. Now, as we get further down and closer to the Earth, there are a lot of other ways, birds and squirrels and things that move really fast, and staccato music and certain characters in literature. They all carry the essential archetype of essential Mercury. But I stopped at the planet and thought, well, how could it be that one person experiences the archetype of the great god Mercury and thinking as assertive and aggressive and loves a good argument, and another person hates arguments on the mental level and loves harmony and compatibility, and other people have to filter information through their feelings in order to learn them. And yet other people have to get right down to earth and try them out and see if they work. And if they work, they're okay. And if they don't work, they're impractical. And I started looking at the sign of the zodiac that the planet Mercury was traveling through when at the time of a person's birth. And that's where my research on the Mercury model really started. So that was the core idea behind it, was how do we each experience the archetype of essential Mercury differently, one from another?
Yeah.
Is that all right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But I do feel for you that those moments of inspiration where this information came from, because as you say, it's never been written about before, right? I'm trying to get through in that space of where this information come from. You know, was it of the human mind, or was it that greater part of yourself, the consciousness that's all-knowing and all-benevolent in a sense, that this information was pouring from, this better part of yourself?
Absolutely beyond my ordinary brain and nervous system. Way beyond
Yes.
my ordinary brain and nervous system.
And it was in those spaces, and it may sound crazy, but you know, you was in the shower when some of it came, for example. You was in the dream state when some of it came, and other quiet space. But it's when you quiet that mind down, and you allow that greater part of yourself to come through the mind, and
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the beauties of the Mercury model, is that it defines for each one of us the inner workings of our own mind. Therefore, how to quiet it down.
Right.
How can you control something you don't know what it is, or you think it's a generality? Yeah.
So that's what. Oh, okay, but because you know, when you described myself there as Rex, the learning style of Rex, actually, yeah, I can connect to a lot of what you said there. So I'm thinking, well, how would you know? That's very deep, and that's a very cool thing there. But you know, as you say, it's come from that greater part of yourself, and that's where what the work is about, is quieting the mind as well for that better side of you to come out. But it's also for the Sorry. No, go ahead, please.
It's in its usefulness in everyday life. You know, as you're interacting with guests, with children, with your friends, with everybody in your day-to-day life, if you know that you're Rex the Dignified, and that you run the risk of feeling to another person like a forest fire coming at them, then it is going to benefit you and your whole realm of self-awareness and self-understanding. To moderate that, if it seems necessary, rather than blowing people out of the water.
Sorry, I didn't catch one of the words there. What am I what am I modifying? What is it with Rex that he does over the top?
Rex can feel to other people like a forest fire. There are a few of the other learning styles that can too, a forest fire, just bearing down on them. Especially because when you do take in information, you take it in so fast that you might not realize that other people's mental dynamics are much slower than yours because they have to do more to the information in order to take it in. Okay? I, for example, as a hands-on learner, I have to actually apply new information to real life before I can, or as part of learning it. All you have to do is breathe it in, and you've got it. And if you recognize how fast you are in comparison to me, then if we were in a conversation together, which in fact we are, it would be helpful for you to allow me the space that I need to take in what I need to take in.
You know, it's funny.
And I need to give you the space to almost spontaneously, once you've made your mind up to learn something, almost spontaneously have it in its entirety. You don't need to apply it to life. You don't need to feel if it feels like a good idea. And in knowing how your mind works like that, it'll improve, well, it possibly can improve every one of the relationships that you have.
So let me just bring that down. It's funny you say that. Well, it's not funny. There's a connection here with your work and with reality. There's a lot of truth. That's the word I'm looking for. Truth in what you do. And actually, I've learned that by giving people space and allowing them to say what they've got to say, it always works better for me. And I think probably one of my life lessons and a bit of an aha moment right now is that doing this show is helping to heal that side. See, we all do things that we think aren't connected sometimes, but they're all connected in coming down here to heal yourself as a soul, or to heal what you may have come down here to learn from. And the time that you're born, and if I can get the word out, the time that you're born, and that when you choose to come down, it has a massive significance in what you came here to learn as well, just as your charts at the back of the book explain as well. Now, just to say to everyone that the learning styles are all connected to the charts at the back of the book. So at the back of the book, there's from 1925 to 2025, and then in those charts, you'll be able to figure out which particular type of learning style that you are. Of course, with the charts that we looked at before, our Rex. So it's almost like, to me, that these fundamental learning styles that you've brought through in this reality, channeled, received, downloaded, whatever words you want to use, are really a cool way to then learn and heal from the way that you communicate with people, so that the best part of you always comes through. And when I say the best part, the true nature of who you are, the consciousness nature of who you are comes through, and is, the mind is bypassed, that perfect side of you, that most loving, caring, kind, non-violent side to come through in all its forms of communication and the presentation of who you are to the world, in a sense.
Well, I think you're taking this in, Kevin. Thank you. The Mercury model absolutely identifies each person's mental strengths, natural, genuine mental strengths. But the other thing it does is pinpoint our possible blind spots. So that too is a wonderful tool for self-awareness and personal understanding, is to recognize where your blind spots are. It suggests that every learning style is valuable. We all have very important contributions to make to the larger group. And if we have disconnected from our learning style, let's say, for example, that when you were 10 years old, someone accused you of being pompous and always wanted to lead with your own story. And you said, you didn't say, oh, well, what I'll do is give other people the chance to tell their story, and I'll be the moderator. What you may have said when you were 10 years old was, I don't want to brag about myself. I don't want to own the whole show. I want to be just like everybody else. And let's say you disconnected from your own mental strengths right then and there at that point, and maybe became more like the school teacher who was suggesting that you needed to do it his or her way, or a parent or whoever, and you disconnected from your own mental strengths by thinking they weren't important and they weren't valuable. And I guess the worst is when they're ridiculed by other people. If your own mental strengths are ridiculed and viewed as a weakness, it does everybody a terrible disservice. But so part of what I'm trying to do is help people reconnect with what's best in themselves while being aware of how that best can be applied to life, and with just one half an eye on the shortcomings, the blind spots that we all have. Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And there's so much we could say from that. There was something I was going to lead on from that as well. Let me just tune back into that. Because there's a lot that we need to still cover. I would probably say as well that listening is also as important as communicating as well. I tend to want to always tell my story, but I do want to listen as well, and it's a balance sometimes. But isn't listening a sort of art form that we, when communicating with someone else, that's been lost sometimes?
Well, yes, it is. Krishnamurti did wonderful stories about listening. Yes, it is an art form.
What I mean by this, to mention this, is that is that an essential in applying the Mercury model as well? Because I know that obviously the Mercury model in its 12 fundamental learning styles is all about improving the way that you come across to people. But isn't there some fundamentals in listening as well in the conversation
Right.
learning?
I say that the Mercury model is about learning, thinking, and communicating. So communicating is only one part of that. Learning and thinking certainly has to do with listening and taking in information. Listening is one way of taking in information. But I have a feeling that when you're using the word listening, you're talking about a component of relationship more than
Yes.
how information becomes known to you.
Yes.
And absolutely, the Mercury model is one of the most powerful tools for how to establish a foundation for mutually respectful relationships that I've ever seen. Let me put it this way: if there are minds engaged, it doesn't matter what the age of the people are, what the gender of the people are, what the nationality of the people are. It doesn't matter what the topic is or what the situation is. If minds are engaged, I believe that the learning styles, the archetypal characters of each person stand there between them as filters to what we take in and what we deliver, to our ability to hear or listen and our ability to speak. Every time minds are engaged, the learning styles stand as filters. And that's why it's so important to recognize not only your own, but who the other person is.
Yeah, that's so true. And I've also just got to go back to Rex the Dignifier, because I've just got to say that you've got me pretty right there, in the sense that I am very resistant sometimes to taking new information on board. And as pre to this interview, I was like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. It's not. But as soon as I was ready, and you explained it, I was like, oh, I get that.
Yeah.
That makes sense. And now I've accepted it. I'm like, oh yeah, this is just another way, just to to get the soul coming through, rather than the mind, which isn't going to lead to most times the happiest intuitive side of you.
Well, there are a lot of teachers who advise annihilating the mind because it is the slayer of the real. And
it's a
as
balance,
true
though.
as pardon?
It's a balance, though, isn't it?
I think that if we discount the mind altogether, it's probably as bad for us personally as discounting the ego. Right. Now, we could go into definitions of what do I mean by the ego, but if we have no ego, we have no personal boundary. And in this day and age, with information coming at us from all over the place, most of which isn't really pleasant, without a personal boundary, we're going to just fall to, at the first hurdle with overwhelm. And if we discount the mind, we discount all of the relationships of our life, because if what you take into speaking with your best friend and your bank manager and your child and so forth is coming from your mind, and if you've got a clear picture of what Rex the Dignified is going to feel like to another person who isn't Rex the Dignified, you're going to start modifying the way you use your mind and your words. There's a benevolence in being a king, and there's an arrogance in being a king, and you get to choose which way you want to play it, in terms of the use of your mind. I think it's preliminary. I don't want to say it's in balance with the soul. I think they're on entirely different levels. But the way we go through our day-to-day life includes both. And perhaps it's a matter of they'll alternate in steps of growth, that the more we understand the mind, the more integral our soul becomes to our daily life, and vice versa.
Yes, vice versa. Because, for example, right, if I'm not happy with my job, because that's what my intuitive side is telling me, which I do listen to, you can't fight that side once you become in tune with it.
No.
But I'm not going to not employ my logical side and say, well, I'm just going to walk out my job now and whatever, because that's not, I've got bills to pay, and I've got other things that rely on that job and other people that I'm maybe looking after. So logically, I'm going to yes, okay, I'm not happy, so let's try to change things, but let's then look for something else while still employed. I know it's the most simplest kind of example, but it's employing both. You're not. I totally agree with you. You should not it should not all just be the heart space. It's got to be the logical side there as well, in a sense, but not just one or the other, but a combination of both.
Yes.
Yeah.
May I tell you a story about an adolescent?
Please.
He was a lucky boy because he was in a school that had a special education unit, and the man heading up the special education unit was au fait with the Mercury Model, and generally he had the most ostracized and excluded children from every classroom and from the school itself in his special education unit. But this one child, young man, 16 years old, had outbursts in the classroom. He was a very intelligent child, and while I'm using that word, could I insert that the Mercury model does not comment on intelligence or IQ or mental capacity, but on style? Just wanted to make sure I got that in. The adolescent in question would have outbursts of temper where he would attack the school in general for being such a poor school and not promoting good education, and the teacher in particular for not doing his job properly. And it was that his main head teacher who decided that with him, the two decided together for this young man to go to the behavior unit for a while. And of course his Mercury model learning style was identified, and the man at the head of it set about treating the adolescent through the requirements of his learning style, which are all spelled out in the book. And it took almost no time at all for the penny to drop and just change this lad's life altogether. He he was given a copy of his learning style, which he took away to study, his profile. And he was given an opportunity to put together a project and perform it for the other children who were in the special education unit that week. And being given free rein to enlist his own creativity was so important to that little Rex the Dignified. It is so important that creativity be part of the person's life, that he realized that he had a great time. He really enjoyed the performance, but it showed him how difficult it might be as a teacher to be on call like that, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week in the classroom. Every hour in the classroom that he would have to be in top form and in performance mode. And he realized that he would never take in information that he didn't feel was of the highest quality and the most perfectly phrased. And he just realized he was making too great a demand on his teachers out of his desire, and I'm sure you'll identify with this, of having quality information. And he forgave everyone. He transformed. He never shouted at a teacher again. He just realized that it was his need for high quality information that was running the show, rather than anything about it was about the teachers too, but he saw it all, and it changed everything.
Absolutely. And where do you, thank you for that, where do you think these kind of tapes that we have playing in the background that cause us these issues come from as well? Have you thought about that?
I think it's inherent within our makeup. Anything that you're born with is inherent within your makeup.
And
even if nobody ever mentioned it to you in your whole life, it would be there. I mean, my need to cover the details and yours to have the quality. Those are indelible parts of our nature.
True.
Am I not answering your question?
Well, that is true. All very unique and all very individual. But
Yes.
for me, I think to myself, well, some of the thoughts I used to have as a kid, I don't know where they came from, and they were older than the thoughts that I should have had. And I say to myself now, well, I kind of do believe in the continuation of the soul, and that it was here before, it will be hereafter, where this hereafter is.
Mm-hmm.
And, is there tapes that are still running from previous situations that the souls encountered that are coming to this incarnation, and that's where these thoughts and randomness comes from sometimes, for that make up who we are. That's greater than just the mind. I suppose that's what I'm saying.
Well, on a personal level, I agree with you completely. The Mercury model itself doesn't go into
No, not at
past
all.
life
No.
or additional material. But I think what I told you about Rex the Dignified took us about a minute. There's an entire chapter in Fish Can't Climb Trees about Rex the Dignified, and further material on how Rex the Dignified interacts with the other 11 characters.
Right.
One thing about Rex is the long-term memory. You know, it's a phenomenal. You can make an elephant look forgetful, because once something has passed all of your tests for whether or not you'll take it in, and you have taken it in, then it's there for the duration. So if anybody were going to funnel old information back through, or racial memory information, or cellular memory information, or, reincarnated Atlanteans, or whatever, it's going to be people who work on a daily basis with long-term memory.
That's
So,
a gift of a curse.
well, it is actually, it's both, isn't it?
Well, it is, because
Yeah.
someone may say something to you that you think, well, they're just making that up because they want the situation to be different than what it was, but actually they've actually genuinely forgotten what it was, because you don't realize that your memory is a bit greater than some others, and
Yes.
actually you need to give them the benefit of the doubt.
Yes. I think that those of you with that fine long-term memory can be merciless on people like me who don't have good long-term memory as a natural thing, but are much better at project work, one project at a time.
Oh gosh, you've hit the nail on the head there. Yes.
Yeah. The thing is, in our diversity, in our mental diversity, we cover all the bases. That's why all of us are needed.
Of
Rather
course.
than,
Well,
you know,
here's another point as well, that from understanding your fundamental learning style through the Mercury Model, do you think it makes you a more caring person towards others?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh, yes.
more accepting, more loving towards others, and not so
Absolutely.
hurtful. Yeah.
It provides you a tool to grant others permission to be themselves.
That's interesting, isn't it? So, some of us walk around and we're not our best selves, are we? We're violent, we're hurtful, we're unkind, we're not loving, and many other things. And you would say that by looking at this wonderful work that you've brought through, that you can actually come from a different space towards others. And isn't that one of the greatest issues on planet Earth right now?
Isn't it? Isn't it? I think there's a great deal of manipulation going on from the highest levels down to the personal. I don't mean the highest. I mean the highest man-made levels down to the personal. There. And what we need is better communication, and that's where I think the Mercury Model comes in, is if you know who you are, if you know who your recipient is, or even if you know that other people are different from you, you can speak respectfully to anybody, and doesn't that just breed love? If your mind is in the place of you rate the most highly of all your capabilities, your ability to speak respectfully to another person. All else is can come from that. Of course, it can start anywhere and filter anywhere because we're unified in our diversity. But yes, I have to agree with you.
Well,
Although it doesn't deal with unkindness, the Mercury Model. It deals with the mental position that can lead to unkindness.
Well, that's an important point. That is actually, you just read my mind there, because I was going to say, how does it deal with anger? Does it help
Yeah.
to calm the anger part of you down, because your mind's in a calmer state because of the learning style and the way you're coming across, and the sort of self-check that you're going through sometimes as well.
Yeah, it doesn't deal directly with anger, but what you just said is absolutely right. If you're insisting to yourself that you're going to manifest your mind in its highest possible dimension, and that everyone else has a mind just as high, if only you'd respect them, it automatically deals with aggression. Now, there are some minds that are just plain aggressive because it's fun. But that's the lowest expression of some very fine mental equipment.
Yes, well said. Yeah, absolutely. That's a good way of putting it. But isn't it nice to know that when you do come from your highest self, and from example, from using your fundamental learning style, that actually, if you come from that space or of that greatest part of yourself, actually others will in the end reciprocate that. They can't
I've
but
found
not.
that that's particularly true in childhood. If a child is brought up to recognize that we all have different ways of dealing with information, that our minds tick in very different ways, and they're shown what it is they need to claim in order to learn easily, they're going to extend that favor to everyone else. It's easiest, like many things are,
Yeah.
to learn that in childhood.
And I suppose that's covered in one of your chapters or sections in your book, in the sense of getting along with each other more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which I wasn't really coming from that chapter, but then I've just seen it on the contents list. I'm like, oh, well, it is covered there as well, because
Well,
I suppose,
it is.
Yeah, that's a net.
It actually shows the kind of common ground that exists between any two minds. There are ways within Fish Can't Climb Trees to assess what you can bring forward within yourself to connect with the natural qualities in somebody else's mind.
Right.
It's rare where there's no common ground at all. It's possible, and it's particularly challenging if it's within a family, if there are two minds that have no common ground at all. Every facet of the path toward learning and communicating differs between the two people. It's still possible, and it's invaluable to know that, because it isn't that you just don't like each other, it's that there's a problem. You see things through entirely different lenses. But that can be worked through too.
Of course.
So, yes.
Of course. Well, that's another important dynamic family. What a great place if anyone's going to learn. I think is in that arena. It always seems to be the place, and it's.
Yeah.
I'm glad you've mentioned that in this application as well, and also in the application of teaching as well. I mean, at the beginning of the book, there is a number of people that have used the Mercury model and have had great success with it. But when it comes to teaching as well, for actual teachers, is there resistance sometimes in applying this model at all?
Oh, there's tremendous resistance. I think that on the whole, teachers feel like they have so much to do that they're right on the edge of their comfort zone. And to ask them to incorporate yet another thing to worry about or to think about is just asking too much. But I mentioned family groupings within minds of similarity, family groupings of similarity. And you don't need, in a classroom, so much to deal with 12 different learning styles as to break it down into family groupings and make sure that the way you're teaching has something for everyone over the course of a lesson or over the course of the day. I've done this work with business teams and too. In fact, I don't think we mentioned that the Mercury model was first developed as a team building tool to help teams talk to each other. And of course, the easy communication within a business team is going to lead to profit at the end of the year for the company. So it was a bit of an acid test for that, and it did really well. But training and teaching can be done in a group setting. And in fact, even speaking to a general audience, you can incorporate facets of the Mercury model to make sure you're addressing more people. For example, a quick joke in the middle of a presentation is apt to engage 2 out of the 12 styles.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it is. There are just things that you can do over the course of a day or a lesson or even just a talk to make sure you're reaching everybody.
Absolutely, absolutely. Where would you like to see your work? What is going to be the push for your work now, in a sense? Is it more in doing talking session, conferences, or your own classes, or online classes?
I've been so focused on this book and just moving it out there that I probably haven't thought very much about that. But I love teaching workshops because workshops are active, participational, bring the book to life, so to speak. And the way I do them is very, very personal. People are moved around into these different groups that I've just, family groupings that I've just mentioned. And the 12 learning styles are dramatized. Drama is an amazing thing for breaking right through to everyone. I'm sure you know that because you're leaning in that direction. But have you tried costuming in your own work?
No.
Let me throw that out as a suggestion, that you may find you can reach even more of an audience with a little precise costuming. That could just mean a hat.
Okay.
Or whatever. But I love to teach workshops. I expect that I'll probably be doing a lot of more personal work, individual work, because I've thrown out the challenge in my book that beyond the 12 primary tone learning styles, which some people object to because they feel pigeonholed into a group or one of 12, that actually the Mercury model identifies individuality, because after the primary tone, in your case, Rex the Dignified, many people have what I call subtones, which are auxiliary and additional mental components that can come forward, and sometimes they correspond quite well with the primary tone, and sometimes they conflict very badly. But it's like an inner team that each of us has within our mind. It stands to the primary tone like a conductor might to an orchestra,
Right.
or like a drill sergeant might to a group of soldiers. He's the boss. He's the main man is the primary tone, in your case, Rex. But there may be other qualities that are very strong as well. And learning to work with that inner team is another whole adventure in personal development. Getting them to talk to each other civilly and respectfully.
Absolutely, absolutely.
It's very interesting work.
What? And also, what's your website?
Right. www.mercurymodel.com exists, and it's developing. It isn't finished. It's developing.
Okay.
But it's up there, and now that I've said that to you, I think I'm even more determined to finish it.
Right. Excellent. Now you don't do any astrological consultations, do you?
I do.
Oh,
That's
you do.
another hat. Because in a consultation, I wouldn't look just at Mercury. See, what most astrologers do is take a single individual and look at all the components within them. And what the Mercury model does is take one component, the mental dynamics, the cognition, and spread it over all of humanity. And that's a huge difference, but I do both.
Right, okay, so you do astrological consultations, chart comparisons, the day chart, and sort of astrological readings in a sense. So if people want to get one of those readings, is there another website to go to for that?
There's astroinnovation.com.
Excellent.
My business name, Astro Innovation.
Okay, well, your book and those websites have been coming on the screen throughout this interview. Just a sort of final question then, what would you say is the most important message of your work to the audience?
The most important message is that there is now a tool available to everyone that easily identifies and very accurately describes how everybody's mind ticks. Your own, your children's, your parents, your employer, everybody. And that, I believe, can improve communications and personal relationships and maybe even global relationships if it's put to use.
Okay, well, all I'd like to say, Helen, is thank you so much for joining us today.
You're very welcome, and thank you for asking me, Kevin. Rex.
Well, we've come to an end on tonight's show. Don't forget that you can listen and watch all our past interviews on the More Show's official YouTube channel. Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel for new daily shows. You may also find out more on all past and upcoming guests on themoreshow.com, or do like us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest updates. So until next time, be safe.